Before Dr. Casper Darling was Dr. Theodore Ashe Jr., the previous head of research and son of director Theodore Ashe. His research and work would become the foundation for the Federal Bureau of Control and the Oldest House. But that work would also make him an enemy of the board. Here is the story of Dr. Theodore Ashe Jr., the man who became one with the Oldest House. Not much is known about Dr. Ashe's childhood other than it being strange, stranger than he would have liked. His father, Ashe Sr., was obsessed with the otherworldly, living in an esoteric world. He too was strange, and he was in awe of places like the Oldest House. Unfortunately, by the time the FBC discovered the Oldest House, Ashe Sr. had already died of unknown causes and had been buried the week before. Director Theodore Ashe Sr. was the last government-appointed director of the FBC, and after his death, the entire bureau, as it was known, would change, and Dr. Ashe Jr. would be at the center of those changes. Discovering the Oldest House baffled Dr. Ashe, and while he and Ashe Sr. had a tumultuous, contentious relationship, he was remorseful when they discovered the door to this strange house, because his father would have loved it. Where he knew his father should have stood, as the first one to enter this paranatural place, instead stood Ashe Jr., the bookworm, the head of research, and he was absolutely terrified. His legs shook as he crossed the threshold. In an attempt to understand the house, Dr. Ashe made tapes of his time inside, with his first log being on August 4th, 1964, Entry Day.
The floors crawl, the walls slither, it's a shifting pit. On the street, it's just another drab building standing there for anyone to see. But no one does. How do we miss it? Northmore. Acting director Northmore now is on a train from Washington. He'll expect answers, which is why I'm making these tapes. They're evidence that I'm at least trying to understand. Father searched his entire life for something like this, and we find it 1 week after he's buried. He always hated irony.
Everything within the mysterious building happened so fast, and by day 5, Dr. Ashe and his team had already had several losses due to the house's shifting nature. In just the 5 days since entering, a dozen of his men had already been swallowed by the house, but they had also discovered a lower cavern that seemed to shift less and was therefore more structurally sound and somewhat safe. This area was the foundation. Deep inside the foundation, Dr. Ashe and his team discovered a pillar, an onyx spike that protruded like an imposing stalagmite. Dr. Ashe's research on it said, "Given its significant location, I believe the pillar is either the very heart of the Oldest House, or an intrusion within that heart. Or perhaps it's like the husk of a seed, from which the Oldest House sprouted." Trottier wrote that great architecture isn't built, it grows. But then why does the pillar look so different from the rest of this place's concrete walls and rocky caverns? It's easy to see it as an anomaly, a buried artifact, a foreign body, a demonic phallus. I wonder if this pillar is any more welcome here than we are.
Northmore even made a discovery. A pistol, placed on a stone pedestal in front of that strange ebony pillar. Seems like something out of a storybook, except the heroes usually find swords, not handguns. But it is the perfect lure for someone like him. Hours after finding this weapon, Northmore cornered me to spout some nonsense about how the board had made him the director. He ran it about the title being meaningless before now, calling Father and all other previous directors shams, frauds, and worse. I think this place is worse for Northmore than it is for me. Strangest thing? There was no pedestal in front of that pillar a day ago. This building has swallowed a dozen of my men, and now it's handing out presents? Is it playing some sort of game? If it is, we're most certainly losing. Oh, we don't even know the rules.
Dr. Ashe was confused by the weapon and everything surrounding it. The appearance of the weapon, the way Northmore was acting, the board. What did it all mean? What game was the house playing? And who or what was the board? Dr. Ash realized how bad this place was for Northmore and how deluded he sounded, but he realized that he didn't feel right here either. By day 28, the mysterious house had been officially named the oldest house by Director Northmore, who insisted this was the name, and Dr. Ash was too tired to even ask why. He had begun to be more affected by the house. He knew this place was bad, but now he was also losing sleep. But the work continued. Per Northmore's orders, him and his team established an examination lab deep in the foundation. And as the obedient head of research that his father raised him to be, Dr. Ash had basically begun living in his lab. Alongside Dr. Ash, head of research, were 4 other members of his team: Lewis McNary, the chief excavation engineer, Hank Wilder, the security chief, Marcus Talbot, the senior cartographer, and Dr. Gustav Frenzel, the lead physicist. Down in Dr. Ash's lab, he and his team would spend their time investigating the pillar where Northmore found the handgun. At first, for Dr. Ash, the work was half-hearted, and he was just being a good employee. But then it changed.
The work was half-hearted at first, I admit. But then I discovered numerous non-Aristotelian energy channels converging at its base. Ley lines, dragon roads, Hyligalinian, call them what you want. But this pillar is the crossroads. I started building something. Equal parts talisman and technology. An array that can impose order on the ley junctions. That's the idea, at least. We'll see when I'm done. I prefer to work away from the pillar. I'm not the only one who feels like that thing has eyes.
Though he didn't understand how or why the ley lines were connected to the pillar, he wondered if it acted as a magnet, attracting the ley lines. Wondered if the pillar was a product of the focused energies of the ley lines. He had no answers, just knew that it wasn't a coincidence. He was making progress, but working under the nail made him uneasy. He felt like it was watching him, that it had eyes, and so he preferred to work away from it. But the ley lines needed to be investigated further, which apparently Northmore agreed with since he brought in another doctor to aid in Dr. Ash's research. Dr. Gustav Wagner would be sent from headquarters in DC to assist Dr. Ash. But he knew it was really Director Northmore's way of saying he didn't trust Ash to work unsupervised. Regardless, it didn't stop his work, and the ley lines gave him an idea. Here he would build something, equal parts talisman and technology, an array that can impose order on the ley junctions. As an accomplished engineer, his work would be successful, and these would become control points. Alongside the creation of these control points, Dr. Ash also invented power cores. He intercepted and contained ambient energy of the ley lines in a kind of non-Aristotelian battery. It was difficult capturing energy he could barely measure, but luckily for him, the porous stone of the Foundation's caverns helped with their conductive qualities. Using stone flakes and copper wires, his power cores collect significant power that should never leave the oldest house, as the repercussions of tapping into the power field are unknown. He was proud of his work, and unlike his father, Ash Jr. enjoyed inventing. He liked the creativity that it allowed, set within the firm boundaries of logic and physics. After all, he was a man of science. But his father did not agree, calling it a mundane science. So, in honor of his father hating his inventions, Dr. Ash dedicated his power cores to his father. "May he scowl in peace," he said. Thanks to Dr. Ash's work, progress was being made on the oldest house to help limit the house shifts and to try to make it a more safer, more manageable place. He and his team were trying to find some normalcy within the paranatural house, but it was complicated. At this point, the Foundation was not properly set up for the research teams, and it seems as though Foundation personnel were having to relieve themselves in the oblivion. To all Foundation personnel, it has come to my attention that members of our exploration teams have been relieving themselves of their God-given liquids in the chasms of the Foundation. As per earlier orders, all personnel currently serving in the Foundation must expel fluids, urinate, do their business into the correctly colored and labeled vials provided by research personnel. To do otherwise disrupts the ongoing study of the Foundation and demonstrates a profound disrespect, not only for the board and its oldest house, but also for the bureau you so proudly serve. If I discover firsthand any agents treating the Oblivion as their personal lavatory, they will be forced to go down there and personally clean up their mess. Signed, Director Broderick Northmore. This gives a little bit of insight into the working conditions of Dr. Ashe and his team, but also at how Northmore had become completely loyal to the board, seeing them, the oldest house, and the bureau all as one, to be obeyed. This loyalty to the board would put a further strain on Northmore and Dr. Ashe's already tense relationship. But luckily for Dr. Ashe, he had his lab to escape to, and his work was progressing. A special consultant was brought in by Dr. Ashe's team to help map the lower caves. While Robert Ricardo was doing his job, he discovered a chamber with weird eyes covering every inch of the walls, and in the middle of it was a strange black pillar, similar to the nail but smaller. The FBC had already limited the guy's exposure to the non-ordinary by drugging him and carrying him through the upper floors, but they didn't expect a discovery like this, or the way it affected Ricardo. It did a number on him mentally, and he could never recover. His career was over. After this, the Bureau didn't want to bring in any more outsiders to help with their work, as they always ended up dead or loony, according to Marcus Talbot, the cartographer from Dr. Ashe's team. Rangers would later fill this position instead. Surveying the Foundation was dangerous, and at one point, Dr. Ashe even requested that a helicopter be moved inside so he could investigate the Foundation by air. More specifically, he wanted a lightweight 1 or 2 man military-grade helicopter moved to the Foundation sector piece by piece. McNary, Dr. Ashe's chief excavation officer, had already delivered a machine for Dr. Ashe's sand research project, which resulted in many of McNary's men being lost. They had to bring an entire bulldozer down piece by piece. A helicopter was too much. McNary was also upset at Dr. Ashe's ridiculous request because he didn't stop to think about how much time, money, and effort a bloody helicopter would cost them. Infuriated by the lack of care of personnel and their safety, McNary denied his request. Other members of his team also weren't too happy about Dr. Ashe's sand research project either. In a letter to a surveyor, Tom, the sender says that Ashe is batty if he thinks we want to stay here and sift through more sand for him. It's just rusted iron flakes anyways. Did you know that? We were breathing that shit in. So if Dr. Ashe was looking for anything within the sand, apparently it was pointless, and nothing more than iron oxide, rust. By day 41, Dr. Ashe's team was completely void of any morale, and part of it was because that feeling of being watched had consumed them. Many even suffered nervous fits, and some had to be evacuated to get away from it entirely. The nail, or whatever was watching them, was sucking them dry. But Dr. Ashe persisted. He even ventured further down into the Foundation and its deep caverns, where he found several new mysteries inside. The first discovery were these cave paintings that made no sense. Dr. Ashe's report on them said, "At first, I thought the cave paintings in the Foundation chronicled ancient humans' encounters with natural occurrences like weather, but it soon became clear they depicted events far outside the average human experience. Also, it seems I was wrong to assume the images are ancient. Radiocarbon dating suggests something impossible. That I've been down here longer than the paintings. That's absurd though. The style and medium clearly indicate a Paleolithic origin. I was ready to conclude that an ancient community of humans lived in or around the oldest house. Now, with this information, I don't know what to think. Is one of our agents drawing these? Or is there someone else down here with us? This place has a habit of skewing my results, so perhaps the data is corrupted. Or perhaps some paintings were created at different times. The art does seem to chronicle not only the past, but also the present, and possibly even the future. I see in them echoes of the board, some linear architecture, even what could be interpreted as a director. Are the paintings telling a story that's still being written? If so, who is writing it? The next mystery that Dr. Ash discovered were these 4 large stone tablets with some kind of etchings on them that didn't match the cave artwork. His report on the etchings says, the tablets themselves are likely not native to the foundation, seeing as they're slabs of sedimentary stone, quite different from the cave's categorization-defying rock. Their placement and form are also too intentional to be naturally occurring. But who braved this place to carry them in, and for what purpose? I discovered a 5-point macro entanglement between the tablets, with the pillar at its center. These links seem to extend beyond our level of consciousness, to some astral realm I can't detect. Is Northmore's board somehow tied to all of this? The etchings on these tablets are similarly curious. They differ from the cave paintings in style and technique, so are clearly not of the same origin. Are they the visual narration of some event, or do they indicate intent, a wish, a plan? They seem to only consist of a tree and the pillar, but the sizes of either are inconsistent. What does that signify? I'm missing key pieces of this puzzle, and it's unlikely I'll ever find them. Alongside the mysterious tablets, Dr. Ash also discovered the id. These odd, somewhat sentient, avant-garde sculptures of humans became what he would call the id. They were polite and shy, and some were even curious.
In cheerier news, I've made some new friends. I met them while exploring the deeper caves. They're hard to describe, but imagine avant-garde sculptures of humans. I call them the id. They aren't hostile. In fact, they're polite and quiet, which is more than I can say for my colleagues. Most id are shy, but a few were quite curious. While I sat taking notes, one came to look at my sketches. I offered him my pencil, but that spooked it. What are the id? Residents? Prisoners? They remind me of the golems from Kabbalistic texts, or a type of homunculi. I know I shouldn't, but I gave them names. There's Hercules, Adam, Lilith, Copernicus. Mabel is the bravest. They're a funny bunch.
The id confused Dr. Ash, but at the same time they excited him. He loved finding these new creatures and was fascinated by them. But maybe even more weird than Dr. Ash's discovery of the id was his strange encounter with a janitor deep inside the Foundation. His report on this strange encounter says, "An odd thing happened today. I was on my way into the lower caves to visit the id. I was bringing them a teddy bear to see what they'd do with it, when I came across a stranger. I found his unperturbed composure in this strange place curious, so I engaged him in conversation. He explained himself in an idiosyncratic foreign manner. I believe he's one of the Finnish immigrants that have been arriving to the city. It's odd that the Bureau has already brought sanitation services down here. Cleanliness is next to godliness, I suppose. His name was difficult to make out, but I found him to be an interesting fellow. He knows a surprising amount about this place, and seems to move in it with uncanny ease, which I admit vexes me a bit. I thought I would master the twists and turns of this beast's belly before some janitor, and yet he easily slipped away and left me lost in the red caves when I tried to pursue. He seems to feel right at home here, as I am beginning to. Perhaps next time I'll introduce him to the id. I bet they'd like that singing voice of his." Unfortunately for Dr. Ash, the excitement and whimsy at meeting these new friends would only last for so long. 10 days later, just 51 days after entry day, Director Northmore was getting frantic, claiming that there were more objects of power, similar to the service weapon within the oldest house, that have yet to be found. He was certain they were in there, so he ordered an all-hands search to find them. Alongside these orders and claims that Dr. Ashe didn't understand, Northmore also began ranting about joining greater causes and spoke often of a pyramid. At first, he wouldn't say what this pyramid was, but finally, after being pressed, Northmore told Dr. Ashe about the inverted black and mathematically perfect pyramid he was speaking of.
After pressing him, he finally described this pyramid to me. Inverted, black, mathematically perfect. Oddly enough, Adam and the other id have shown me numerous inverted triangles painted on the cave walls. Surely there's a connection, but I don't see it yet. As far as occult symbols go, triangles are by no means rare. Flood, Levi, Kroll, they used that shape like it was going out of fashion. Standing on their base, triangles signify stability and strength. Inverted on their points, they represent conflict and stagnation. Of course, the orientation is just a matter of perspective. Looking at the pyramid from below gives you one, from above another. Northmore says he looks up at the inverted pyramid. I have to wonder, is anyone standing over it, looking down?
Dr. Ashe's realization that he had been shown something similar by the id gave him an idea. He knew there had to be a connection, he just didn't know what. So he went through his library and all his knowledge of inverted triangles used as occult symbols to try to find a connection. He also tried to find a way to connect the board. In Dr. Ashe's report on the pyramid and geometry, he says, in esotericism, the triangle is closely associated with the Holy Trinity and other three-part concepts: past, present, future, mind, body, spirit. Interestingly, the term board also implies multiple parts. Upright triangles in Judeo-Christian imagery indicate ascent into the rational divine realm. Inverted, it signifies a descent into the corporeal human. Naturally, the ascent is masculine, and the fall is feminine, Adam and Eve. Considering the above, what does the inverted triangle tell us about the board? They're clearly not corporeal or human. Perhaps they wish to be, or they once were. The likeliest answer is simply that theological imagery cannot help us define alien entities. But still, the pyramid seems significant. Shapes have power, and clearly so does the board. Dr. Ashe began to question the pyramid that Northmore spoke about, but also the board. What were they? What did they want? What was this pyramid to them? And what were they using Northmore for? By day 86, the atmosphere down in the Foundation had continued to worsen, and the id that Dr. Ashe once considered curious, harmless friends had attacked his team. Hercules and Mabel, id number 3 and 11, had killed 2 of his staff, and Mabel had died in the process. The entire event was confusing to Dr. Ashe, since Mabel had always been so kind and brave, but he knew this changed everything. After this, he and his team were ordered to abandon their work in the Foundation. Northmore gave the official order to transfer their resources to the upper floors, now that the control points that Dr. Ashe had created allowed them to safely come and go from the New York streets. These control points had been established throughout the oldest house, which had made it a lot easier and safer for the FBC to get around. And while going to the upper floors would be safer, Dr. Ashe realized that he didn't want to leave. A few months ago, he would have been overjoyed to leave the Foundation, but now he realized he had somehow grown fond of it.
Northmore gave the order to transfer our resources to the upper floors. Now that my control points allow us to safely come and go from the New York streets. Did I forget to include that fact in my previous logs? I've been so busy using the arrays I made. Control points have been established throughout the oldest house. Excuse me if I don't sound excited, it's just... A few months ago, I would have been overjoyed to leave the Foundation. But now I realize I've grown fond of it. There's something deep in the stone here, deeper than that watching presence. something warm. I feel it needing me. I won't go. I'll refuse. Northmore won't be happy, but so be it. I'm starting to see him for what he is, an impotent storm, Father Shade in a cheap suit.
Dr. Ashe had begun to feel another presence within the oldest house. Not the creepy, looming, ominous presence of the watching nail, but something else. Something warm. Something that needed him. So he refused to leave. He knew Director Northmore would be upset at his refusal to follow orders, but he didn't care. He didn't respect Northmore or his so-called authority anyways, especially since he was being controlled by the board. What Dr. Ashe didn't understand at the time was that the presence that watched him, and that the id that he had become friends with, were actually extensions of the board, watching him, his team, and their research. The more that Dr. Ashe began to question the board, the closer that they watched him, until they finally wanted to see his research end. At the board's order, the id attacked his team, and Director Northmore tried to put an end to his research. It was the board that wanted his work stopped. But Dr. Ashe stayed. With Dr. Ashe's refusal to leave the Foundation, Northmore sent a warning, a final warning, to Dr. Ashe. The letter begins with, "As Director of the Federal Bureau of Control and chosen representative, liaison, benefactor of the greater authority of the board, I demand your immediate withdrawal from the Foundation." Prior memos issued broadly to Foundation staff called for swift reassignment of all personnel to the upper levels of the House. All staff complied except you. This demonstrates a lack of respect for my office and the board itself. This is their house and we are their guest. We should conduct ourselves accordingly. Normally, such insubordination would be grounds for dismissal, but out of respect for your late father, consider this instead my final warning. The board and Director Ashe chose me as successor to the office, and no amount of petulance will change that. Indeed, your actions seem to suggest you know better than myself, and by extension, better than the board. Permit me to assure you that this is not possible. Sincerely, Director Broderick Northmore. Northmore had been taken over by the board entirely, trying to keep Dr. Ashe outside of the Foundation to stop his work, just like the board wanted. In the upper floors of the oldest house, Northmore had also been finding those objects of power that he demanded everyone look for, and he was binding to them with the approval of the board. He was amassing power, and his physical body was changing, which Dr. Ashe most likely heard of. Inside Dr. Ashe's lab was an encoded handwritten note between Ashe and F, possibly referring to Frank, the one who had given Director Northmore his medical examination and had been told to hide the results from Dr. Ashe. This isn't confirmed, but it is very possible that Dr. Ashe was told about Director Northmore's physical changes. The letter from Northmore to Dr. Frank Rosen says, "I have reviewed your report of my latest medical. I was disappointed to see that you believe my connection to the service weapon and the board are products of delusion brought on by the stresses of leadership. You witnessed my feats firsthand. You yourself declared my body temperature impossible. There are no delusions. They are product of divine collaboration. The board has awoken in me a power beyond your understanding, and that power will only continue to grow. Your job is to merely ensure that I survive my gift, and with absolute discretion. To that end, my gifts are best used with a degree of mystery that your needles and probes betray. No further medicals shall be required. I forbid you to speak of this matter with your colleagues, especially Dr. Ashe. Under no circumstances do I want him involved. Keep your mouth shut and keep me alive. The board knows what I have become, and theirs is the only opinion that counts. Sincerely, Director Broderick Northmore." This, no doubt, added to Dr. Ashe's distrust of the board. But deep below inside the Foundation, Dr. Ashe wouldn't have to deal with Northmore anyways. He could focus on his work and whatever was calling to him. 32 days after Ashe's refusal to leave the Foundation, and 118 days after entering the oldest house, Dr. Ashe also began to change. But unlike Northmore's connection to the board, Dr. Ash was connecting with the oldest house itself.
I have changed, though it's hard to know how or why. I no longer need tools to detect the house's veins, to hear it breathe. I can feel its blood churning beneath my bare feet. I have added my own illustrations to the walls, trying to solve some mystery that the oldest house whispers to me. I have to avoid the it as I do so. They haunt me. I don't blame them. They're just following the pillar's orders. Even poor Adam doesn't seem to recognize me anymore.
He had begun to feel the house naturally, no longer needing tools or data to understand. He simply felt it, completely isolated and alone deep down in the foundation, while also on the run from the id. He tried answering the mysteries of the house by adding his own illustrations to the walls, all while the board hunted him through their id. But he was getting closer to answers about the truth.
I've spent a long time contemplating the etchings of the tree and its roots. Did you know this city used to be a forest? I wonder if our oldest house wore a different face back then, or if it was always here, a 21st century office building since time immemorial. Can a place know the future? Can it change its skin? Can it wander? I always thought the esoteric world was my father's, not mine. But here, in this sacred place, I finally understand his devotion and his awe.
Deep within the oldest house, Dr. Ash reflected on his father, finally understanding something he never understood. But he would also come to understand more about himself too. Dr. Ash had bound to the oldest house during the many months inside of it. It revealed many things to him, but it also opened up many new mysteries, new questions. The tree etchings bewildered him. He even thought that a tree could have been the first form of the oldest house. He said, "If the house has changed shape over its lifetime, as I've theorized, then was it a tree in its first form?" From his research on pre-settlement Manhattan Island, he discovered a single relevant line. "And there I found a tree not known to me, the devil twisted within its bark." It wasn't firm evidence for Dr. Ash, but he found a connection between this line and the many cultures that believe trees can offer wisdom and guidance, something he had been experiencing from his own connection with the oldest house. Some cultures also offered blood sacrifices to trees, while some claimed trees endowed chosen individuals with inhuman powers. He wondered if the oldest house had chosen a champion, and if it was him. All of these thoughts kept Dr. Ash questioning everything, and eventually he changed even more, becoming almost unrecognizable with his own devotion to the house. He was angry at everyone else for all the lies that filled their ears, how only he could hear the house.
Nobody else hears the house. Their ears are too full of lies. We were shown the way inside so we could help, but all we've done is fall victim to the same parasite. I should have seen the web earlier. The strands between Northmore, the pillar, the gun, the id. What hope did we have? Thrown into this conflict beyond our comprehension. I've decided to rejoin the Bureau in the upper levels, to end my long absence spent in the Foundation. Northmore will be angry at me for disobeying him. That's just his way. But I don't care. I need to remain in the oldest house to help however I can. I doubt I can steer the Bureau back on the right course, but I have to try.
It was this revelation that made him rejoin the upper levels, to finally end his long absence spent in the Foundation, because he realized that he needed to remain within the oldest house to help however he could. With his eyes open, he could try to steer the Bureau back on the right course. He finally had a purpose, and could hardly remember what it felt like to not have one.
How did I go so long without a purpose? Without devotion? I can hardly remember how it felt. I realize how grateful I am to Father for setting me on this path. I wish I could tell him that.
Once Dr. Ash returned to the upper floors of the oldest house, he resumed his work as head of research, researching the new items discovered by the FBC, and also helping to shape not only the foundation of the Bureau, but also how they operated. When the FBC began bringing altered items back to the oldest house, Dr. Ash was in charge of research. So when the holiday memories tree was brought back to the oldest house, after it was found copying people's speech, Dr. Ash performed several tests on it. The tree was copying their speech, but testing revealed it was missing certain words. Cross-referencing with esoteric texts from the early days of the Bureau helped them reveal that when those missing words were spoken in particular formations and spoken at various speeds and cadences, the altered items would react. These formulas were tested on other altered items with an 82% success rate. This discovery excited Dr. Ash and also changed how they operated moving forward. There were many revelations like this that changed the FBC, like when the FBC accidentally created their own altered item when they attempted to record Adi. This made them realize that objects of power can be created, and the Bureau themselves shouldn't be the ones to create more altered items, accidental or not. So similar experiments were prohibited, and soon after, the Ash Act was created. The Ash Act is a FBC regulation that prosecutes individuals and groups who take illegal advantage of the paranatural world. Recreation of events leading to the creation of paranatural objects were prohibited under this new act. Another event that Dr. Ash may have been involved in was the demise of Northmore. The timeline for the directors and the time that they served is a bit of a mystery. But if Dr. Ash was still around when Trench had to take over after Northmore turned into a human battery, Dr. Ash may have helped contain Northmore within the NSC, finally watching the demise of the man who stood against him. It's unknown how long Dr. Theodore Ash Jr. was head of research or how long he was at the Federal Bureau of Control. The only documented dates of his time at the FBC are from 1964 to 1995, when Casper Darling became the current head of research. What actually happened to Dr. Ash or his secret plan to help steer the FBC back on course remains a mystery. And all those secrets that the oldest house were whispering to him were never revealed. There's a lot of unsolved answers regarding the history of the oldest house and the Federal Bureau of Control, and maybe one day we'll find out how Dr. Ash lived and died, and what he learned during his time at the oldest house. Did he become one with the house? Is he still inside of it like Northmore? And in the end, did he think he helped the Bureau get back on the right path? Or was his plan a failure? Let me know what you think. What do you think happened to the previous head of research? Could it have been similar to what happened to Dr. Darling? Do you want to learn more about the FBC's history? And what do you think of Dr. Ash? Let me know all your thoughts below, and thank you so much for watching. Thank you to my channel members, thank you to my Patreon supporters. Thank you all so much for your support, and I'll see you next time.